Okay, and the last thing to mention here are the camera settings. So by now you have your camera set up on the tripod, you have a wireless or remote capability, so you're ready to go. You have natural light streaming through the scene with all other lights turned off. So now you might be wondering, what are the perfect settings? So depending on the amount of people that you have, you're gonna want your f-stop to match that. So if you have a lot of people, you're gonna need a f-stop that can capture more depth. If you just have one person or two people and you know that you're going to be right on the same plane, you can have a smaller f-stop. Smaller f-stop, of course, lets in more light, as well as having a more pretty depth of field, things that are out of focus, which creates more of a professional look on your photos. But using your self timer, you're not going to be able to see whether you're in focus or not. So I recommend having an f-stop around 2.8. This will be a good range for the dynamic and still have a pretty depth of field. So then once you have your f-stop established, you have to set your shutter speed and your ISO. So with your ISO, you of course want it to be as low as possible, 100. But your shutter speed has to accommodate for that. So you're thinking, okay, well my camera's on a tripod, so I can have a low shutter speed because the camera's not going to move. There's not going to be any shake from human interaction. But your posing might be more dynamic. So if you're just like sitting very still and looking at the camera, you can for sure have a low shutter speed. But if you're thinking that you want to do kind of prompts where you're laughing and maybe swinging around, you're going to want a shutter speed around 250. So then once the aperture and the shutter speed are set, you're going to set your ISO. Of course, you're going to want to have it as low as possible, 100. But you want to make sure that the image is properly exposed. So you want to bump up your ISO until your meter looks about in the middle, where you take photos and like the way that it looks. So for my settings, my shutter speed was around 100, the f-stop was 2.5, and the ISO was 320. All of this depends on your situation. How many people you have in the photo, how much light you have, as well as the kind of movements you're doing, whether you can get away with having a slow shutter speed, just sitting there, or a higher shutter speed if you're dancing around.